The thing is that, in all these decentralization and, direct transactions between client and artists, we are forgetting as well that, in the traditional art world, they have some positions that are incredibly valuable and that help artists get their pieces seen.
Hello everyone, it's Joy and Salimi here on yet another episode of NewForum. We're always excited to bring you inspiring and brilliant guests on our podcast. We're powered by NewCoin Foundation, focused on fostering the expansion of decentralized social applications, also known as Social 3.0, by forming an ecosystem and a community of visionaries, creators, and investors to spark conversations on the topics of crypto, the metaverse, NFT, and everything Web3.
And on today's episode of NewForum, we are excited to have with us Maria Paula. She's the co-founder of JPEG Protocol and the founder and managing director at the Department of Decentralization. She has been working in the Web3 space since 2017, and we're looking forward to be chatting with her about JPEG, how it's been like running her own Web3 protocol, and her overall take on the crypto and NFT art world. Hey Maria, we're super happy to have you on today's episode.
Hello, Salimi and Joy. Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, Maria. So let's start off by how did you got into the crypto world, and how did it all led to you founding JPEG?
I am Argentinian, but I live in Berlin, and I, got interested on blockchain because of, some obvious things, as a currency that would be, resistant to like countrywide inflation and would alleviate certain things like corruption because of the traceability. And of course, back then as well, we had the first iterations of DAOs, which were obviously very interesting to me because it was about like borderlessness and being in flatter organizations, being also fully transparent. So I thought all of that was really interesting. And I started digging deeper into that. And around mid-year of 2017, I finally found a job in Web3. I started working with the Web3 Foundation that's towards Polkadot, which is basically an internet of blockchains. And started with them, at first in a very entry-level job because I've never been in blockchain before. I come from the luxury industry. So, I needed to learn everything, but I made it my purpose to create a whole career out of this. So I've been learning and, sort of like climbing ever since. I'm very decided to, make this my world. And actually, I've been quite successful at that because, I have founded a co-founder protocol. I co-founded in 2018 as well, a grassroots organizations here in Berlin that's called Department of Decentralization. That was behind the East Berlin hackathons. We wrote papers on blockchain and art, have curated shows, and we even produce art. So yeah, I am quite excited about everything that's happening. And of course, I started with Web3 quite early, when Web3 was something that people weren't really aware of. And it was very clunky, and some things didn't exist at all. They were just ideas. So yeah, last year when I stepped into Times Square for NFT NYC and I saw that we are, mainstream, it's a really weird sort of experience because, yeah, mainstream was always the goal, and it was hard to predict how it would exactly happen. So yeah, it's a different experience now.
You touched a bit about JPEG, and I'd really love to hear more about the concept and how it's been like, working with like a diverse group of, creators, curators, and collectors, and with different backgrounds. It must be, I don't want to say challenging, it must be exciting, but then I bet that there's some challenging aspect to it as well. And then my last part of the question is like, what do you think is the essential factor needed to onboard more artists into Web3 to launch their own successful NFTs?
The first thing is that, we started JPEG, we met over Twitter, actually, via DMs, because we were very interested in the intersection between blockchain and art, and NFTs were just booming. I was fresh out of finishing writing the second paper with my organization, and I noticed that everything was exploding. So I was thinking of, how to, turn my knowledge into a business, because so far it had all been nonprofits. A nonprofit is also very hard to run. And I was really excited as well about the recognition that NFTs had been getting. And maybe I should correct myself, because when I say that Web3 has hit mainstream, it's actually NFTs that hit mainstream. It's not Web3. Infrastructure hasn't hit mainstream. It has a very long way to go, but NFTs are, an entryway, and some of those NFT users or buyers or whatever will eventually convert to, thinking of better alternatives for their, data and for their financings and whatnot. But yeah, Web3 has a long way to go still. So basically, JPEG came from, the common sort of mindset that we have between Trent, Sam, and I, which are the co-founders. That is understanding that NFTs are cultural assets, that, Web3 has its own universe and as well as its own culture, and that we should create infrastructure to support this culture. When you are thinking of infrastructure to support any kind of culture, for example, a museum, you don't think of a museum that's driven by hype. That might be you can think of a pop-up store or a pop-up exhibition to ride into the hype, but not of a museum. And we want to create durable infrastructure. We don't want to be the museum, because in Web3, we believe that everything should be decentralized, but we want to create the piping. So what we did was, obviously, with the long-term thinking mindset and NFTs being cultural assets in mind, we decided to start thinking of, how we can better contribute to this space. And a dream of us was creating a small gallery that was decentralized and that would be community curated. And that's how JPEG got started. Honestly, after the first call with the guys, we had already, thought about like expanding this vision of the gallery. And then after we started, putting things into paper that's when the vision of creating crowdsourced and community curated registries came about, which is the core piping of JPEG. And on a high level, basically, JPEG allows everyone to create their own NFT exhibitions. And those exhibitions, as they will be on chain, will be creating a social graph of interest. And on the lower level, we have this system of registries, which are crowdsourced and proposed by different community members. So all of these combined creates a different way of, first of all, create different discovery tools for NFTs. Also, it determines how what is actually valued culturally in a less biased way than now, because right now whoever has the larger bags has more power, and they also sway the NFT market, and they decide what's culturally interesting as well. So we're hoping that if we are able to decentralize this registry creation, taste making apparatus, and give power to people by crowdsourcing, then we will have a more level playing field for appreciating culture.
Yeah, I think you made a very interesting point, and I think it's a really great explanation of what you guys are doing. And I'm wondering, yesterday I actually watched an interview of an artist and saying that decentralization for artists and NFTs are like a pipe dream. Like we following this pipe dream of everyone can kind of get their NFTs out there and, you know, build a community and make a living or make art, make money from it. So I'm wondering, what is your thoughts on decentralization for artists? Because right now we still see kind of like in the NFT market the patterns repeating. Kind of like the most valuable artists sell a lot of NFTs and then the smaller artists get left behind. So what is your thoughts on that?
There's two ways. I think that what you're referring to is more like what, you know, we used to call democratization. And access obviously goes both ways. You know, in the traditional art world, it would be a little bit harder for people to access certain pieces, or to, you know, like get ahead and, you know, become a best-selling artist. Here it's a little bit easier. Of course, you know, there's no perfect formula, but I think that community work is really valued. That obviously, you know, the possibility for everyone to become creators is also great. There are some things that, in my opinion, don't need to be decentralized. That's a choice, and that's fair. Everyone can have their own choices. Some people prefer to have their own smart contracts. Some people, you know, prefer to focus on the digital production. So they would want, you know, to depend on marketplaces or any minting platforms to create their NFTs. But there are some things that we are actually forgetting in this particular thing, which is, you know, I do think that it's sufficiently decentralized. Access, it's concentrated, but it's not impossible, to, you know, monetize and to become a successful artist. The thing is that, you know, in all this decentralization and, you know, direct transactions between client and artists, we are forgetting as well that, you know, in the traditional art world, they have some positions that are incredibly valuable and that help artists get their pieces seen, sold, appreciated, and read correctly. And, you know, those are the galleries, those are, you know, the people working in press, the art marketing specialists, the curators, of course, and the critics, and all of those people are the ones that are, you know, driving as well the market and the artists. In Web3, we eliminated those middlemen. And yeah, in Web3 also, we used to think that middlemen are bad, but we don't understand what it's like to build an ecosystem of different parts. So middlemen are, in this regard, actually not bad, because what you have, if you don't have this middleman actually, you know, building and helping build like narratives and structures and markets and whatnot, then the problem is that you will end up with, you know, what we have now, that it's artists having to do like the publicist, the community manager, the critic, the gallery, and it's too much. So decentralization is, you know, actually relative.
Those are great points. So as you're speaking, I was thinking, so perhaps in Web3, like the community takes the role, you know, of that kind of like middleman. That's kind of how I see it, because, you know, most of the time there's this idea of like build a community first before like products, or before, you know, putting out like a product, regardless whether it's good or not, or it could be an art. And we've also had conversations with artists about how will like a DAO make your life, you know, much easier, you know, because if you're within a DAO, then you guys support each other and then their values align. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, with the advent, you can create all of these structures and all of these creative support networks that I mentioned easily with DAOs. This is what we should be doing, actually. And we should be ensuring that also, you know, this creative support network is properly incentivized, because in the traditional art world, they are often overlooked as well. And they take a lot of the lift that artists have to experience. So, you know, for me, whenever you know, an artist asks me, hey, I want to get into NFTs and everything, and I have to tell them, you have to build your community. I feel a little bit weird about it because I understand that, there's people that are, really prepared and it's their job to do this. So, removing this particular, workforce is not what works, stratifying, incentivizing, and, like combining everything into organizations, whether they're DAOs or Telegram groups, it doesn't matter really. I think it's the right thing to do. It's about, understanding what works and what not in each industry and trying to replicate or take the better ideas and not completely disrupt. Web3 is one thing, and Bitcoin and P2P transactions are another thing. They're not mutually exclusive, and they can live together, and they should live together, because we're building a different world, and that world needs more than creators and collectors and community.
I'm wondering, like, you as a founder and builder of so many things, like, what are some of the challenges that you face? Like, what are some of the challenges you face with building like the protocol and building the community?
Building community is something that's quite easy for me. I've always worked with communities, and I like to have fun and engage the community in, different ways. I always try to learn something and teach something as well. One of the things I learned a lot from working with hackers at Department of Decentralization, because when you're putting together an event, when you have to spend like 3-4 days together with them, and you want to ensure as well that they will produce interesting projects at the end of those 3 days, you need to make sure that everything is really well balanced, that people have everything they need. And by everything they need, I don't mean just like really good food, but also brain food, and also spaces to feel creative and to discuss. So having fun plays a really important role on all of these, and the tone on which you ask people for stuff, or the tone on which you're referring to people and communicating, it's also really important. The thing that I learned the best is that a sense of humor can get you a very long way. And it's amazing. And it's much more fun than communicating in a corporate way. So, preserving that and, keeping a little bit informal in Web3, I think it's super important. At the same time, I think that Web3 is now really challenged because, like, and being a founder, I noticed that, but also, when I was working in communications and other stuff, people come into your community and some of them are already expecting like a reward, right? And the current setup for DAOs means that you're going to get an immediate reward for a relatively low lift, and you can get in and get out at any time. So this generates a new gig economy or a new like worldwide tipping system that is fundamentally broken, and it's not very sustainable. So the biggest challenge is how to generate a community that's incentivized, that's excited, that feels it's fair to be in that community, and it doesn't generate extractiveness. We did a really good job when we were doing the East Berlin hackathons, because we would prize people, but because of their expertise and because of their talent. You had to come to the hackathon, have a blast, but then you had to build, and then you would get incentivized because you had talent. So I think that's the hardest challenge, how to incentivize but be sustainable and generate lasting relationships within communities. Probably the right way to do it is by rewarding permanence, expertise, and contributions, and keeping the 3 columns on a spreadsheet or whatever, in this, and finding a system to value people, not about like completely immediate returns. When you start working for a job, you don't get money after like the first task. You would get it at the end of the month. So I don't understand why we're in, these tiny bounty granular systems.
I want to ask you quickly on that. Do you think that people just join DAOs to get something out of it? So like that this mindset is still kind of present? Did they just join like an NFT project, or they join a DAO just to, like you said, extract something? That is you think that is like kind of a bit of the mindset that we're challenged by?
I don't like to generalize, but there's a lot of people, yes. I have wonderful community members on JPEG. We have Ezra and Irene and Tywin and so many more wonderful people that are building with us and giving us feedback forever of, and really engaging beyond incentivization. And because, we don't have a token. So, like they do everything because they really appreciate the product. And I think that those are the kind of people that we want to absorb, and in the future we want to make sure that they are, in a fair position. But I also get, like I go into Discord and they tell me, hey, is there any task? Some other people, and I'm like, yeah, that's not the way that you actually join a community. But I can understand that because, competition is so wide, then that person enters a different Discord, asks for a task, they give him a task, and probably, he or she gets tipped. But yeah, that's not my game. Maybe other companies and DAOs have other opinions.
Yeah, it's always about the intention. And I believe that, like, regardless of how much you incentivize a person, if the values are not aligned, then I mean, there's just no point, So I think I definitely like your approach to it. And speaking about like sustainability, I'm curious to know, what's your criteria when choosing blockchain?
Honestly, I don't have the right knowledge to determine what's sustainable or not. With regards to, like environmental concerns. For personally, I've chosen Ethereum since a very long time. I also worked for proof of stake protocols, and I'm very happy. And but Ethereum has been the one that can ensure that my project will have a future, that my infrastructure will be durable, and that there will be low, barriers of entry because, everyone is on it already. The composability of Ethereum as well makes it possible for me to connect with other projects and to work with other projects in, very easy ways. So as I believe that sustainability is a very important question that Ethereum, should address, and hopefully will address very soon because of proof of stake, that it's actually finally coming. I believe that obviously the durability of infrastructure and, knowing that your project will be safe and that can live a very long life, and that the NFTs will continue to be preserved because Ethereum is durable, is a really big plus for me.
Yeah, I understand that you want to make sure, like, as a founder especially, you want to make sure that all of the NFTs are minted rightly, and that there's no kind of issues of the projects disappearing or anything. So
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I'm excited to see like what else is going to be built and how they're going to evolve with things. Like there's a lot of different protocols right now, and I'm just excited to see like where we take it, because we're just at the start with this. And I think we're gonna be more concerned as well about sustainability and all these things. Yeah, so Maria, thank you so much for being part of today's forum. And I think this was so insightful. I think we really got a lot of good insights from your side as a Web3 founder. And I'm wondering, where can our audience find you on social media?
Sure. So thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. I checked also the website for everything that you're building, NewForum and new coin. And I think that Web3 socials is going to be a really big thing, especially on the advent of what's happening with Twitter right now, and many other related issues. Platform issues are always there. So I'm very excited to see, more projects coming to try to alleviate these challenges. And yeah, for sure, you can find me at jpeg.space. That's JPEG's website. My Twitter is MP the real MVP, and if you want to check JPEG on Twitter, it's a very hard, like it's very hard to find. So I suggest you to go to the website jpeg.space and then go to the Twitter.
Thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thank you so much, Maria. This was really awesome. I really enjoyed listening to you and just like your thought process and your approaches to like everything in this space. And yeah, I think our community will really enjoy this one. We're going to make sure we have Maria's links in the description below. Also, thank you for being a part of today's forum. And if you want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on our social platforms. IG is newcoin.nco and our website is newcoin.org. You can also join our private Telegram group, and we will have all the links again in the chat. Thank you again, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you guys. Bye for now.
Thank you.